There are podcasts like Conan's and shows that I've just avoided doing because I just always feel silly just going on and talking about myself with no purpose other than to talk about myself. I'm more of a listener, to be honest. And but this is important. Now I have something that I've literally worked on for 4 years, which is the longest amount of time I've ever put into any project. And so, I want to make sure people know about it. And you know, as far as your podcast goes, you wrote a review of the movie, and it had it had a line in it that really struck me a lot. I'm the type of person who reads a lot of reviews. Sandler doesn't read any. I read like all of them in case, because I always think, I might learn something about the movie, something I could have done better, which hasn't really happened this time around. The reviews have been very good, and the ones that haven't liked it, I just think they're missing it. I don't think they get it. But your review, besides being a very nice, positive review, had this line, and I'll just read it.
Sure.
Song sequences give it a unique emotional tenor. Here, where you say, it tells a fantastical tale about being young and growing old, and how similarly strange, frightening, and joyous both things can be for everybody.
Yeah.
Just such a unusual way to express the connection between young people and old people in this movie in a way that I hadn't even thought about.
Wow.
But, it really resonated with me, and I thought it was beautifully expressed. So I wanted to, I posted it to thank you, and then you asked me to do this, and I was like, what the hell? I like I said, I don't really like to do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm doing like, some of the more high profile podcasts because I know that it's good for the movie.
Yes.
And yours, I wouldn't classify, don't be offended, but I wouldn't classify yours as one of the high profile podcasts.
That's correct.
So those are the kind of requests where I'm like, oh God, do I want to do this?
Yes.
But
yes.
I was, I just wanted to do yours because that piece of writing really stuck out, and I figured you must be an interesting guy. Normally when I write stuff, I never try to indicate. If someone is saying something and there's a moral behind it, I'd never like to state that moral.
Yeah.
And I probably would have made more popular cartoons if I had once in a while, because like South Park always did that. They would always have Kyle or somebody, like they do the crudest half hour, and then at the very end Kyle would kind of explain what the premise of what the writers were going for. And I always felt like I want people to just figure it out. Dana Carvey and Kevin Nealon came to me with this idea, and I was like, oh, that's a terrible idea. Because I just thought these guys are so one-dimensional that could never work. But then I thought, well, what if we make that a musical? So that'll kill like 20, 30 minutes, and then we can then spend less time on the story. And then I realized, the second half of the movie, once they're in California, can be dominated by Arnold, and it'll be a big parody of his Hollywood career, and it will just make it really silly and make him obsessed with muscles and
buttocks.
And so, we wrote the movie. I added, I started writing it with Kevin, and then I had Conan jump in and help as well, and Dana threw in, and I've written many silly movies since then, all of which have not gotten made. Many of which were SNL based. I made a Chicago Da Bears superfans movie with Bob Odenkirk. I made an ambiguously gay duo movie with Stephen Colbert. I wrote a whole other movie about a character Adam used to play, where he would stand up from the audience and go, "Don't you see? Don't you understand? We love you for who you are, Pat." Anyway, I wrote a movie for that guy. That was a horror movie. But the Hans and Franz movie was just a blissfully ridiculous script and experience. And we loved it so much, had so much fun writing it. But the studio thought it was ridiculous. And then Arnold, but we still thought we could get him made if Arnold would do it. But he made the movie Last Action Hero in the interim.
Oh.
While he was waiting to make this one. And I was told by his manager, a guy named Lou, he said, Arnold, he's afraid to do this now. It was like he created a new rule, like, I can never play myself in the movie again. Because The Last Action Hero was very self-referential. And I thought it was a pretty good movie, actually, but it was a bomb.
It bombed and was critically reviled for some reason, yeah.
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 And, you know, all these movies are a source of frustration. You know, you think talking to me, I'd be like, oh, I got a great career going. But some of my favorite things that I've ever written have never seen the light of day.
Right.
And the Hans and Franz movie was one of them. And now you've seen at least parts of it, and a lot of people agree with us.
Yeah.
That it is one of the funniest things we've written. And that's kind of empowering and makes me feel like I want to just do a podcast where I just do table reads of everything I've ever written. Assume that they're all as good as the Hans and Franz movie. Ever since then, I keep hearing, oh, you got to make it an animated film, or, you know,
something.
I was thinking, what if we did it with AI, you know, and had a young Arnold and a young Kevin and Dana. But really, I would just be happy if we could do a live reading for charity and, you know, split it between Arnold's charity and my autism charity. That would be a dream come true for me.
Well, I hope it happens.
We'll see.
I
do too. There's a lot in it for people of different ages, and I don't think, you know, it's not one of those movies where it's a kid's movie that has like pop culture references for adults that are like little winks. Okay, you bored? Here's a joke for you. No, it's all character-based stuff that's organic to the story. And that's why I think it resonates. It's not just funny to adults, but it really resonates with adults.
Yeah.
And obviously with kids. And Adam and I, you know, when people asked us, what do we want to bring to kids' movies? Like, one of the things is laughter, like, for kids. Because I feel like there's a million great animated movies out there that I love, Pixar movies that tell beautiful stories and are touching and entertaining, but they're not necessarily like laugh-packed.
Yeah.
Even though I love like a movie like Coco, one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. And so Adam and I, you know, we come from comedy, and when we wrote Hotel Transylvania and we went to screenings and the kids are laughing all the way through, we're like, okay, I don't care what the critics think, if they think this is like a slight movie or a dumb premise. We're happy because we hear the sound of kids laughing from start to finish in this movie. I always use Seinfeld as an example.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, just the fact that Jason Alexander never won an Emmy Award.
It's crazy.
Is reason enough to just understand that none of it means anything.
Yeah. Because,
like, I can't pick an actor who deserves recognition any more than Jason does for playing George Costanza. Has there ever been a funnier performance on television?
I don't think so. And he's great as Dr. Skin, if I might say as well. If people are paying attention to his performance in
Thank you.
Yeah, he's great.
Yes. Well, I love Jason, and I've met him a few times. I got to write the You Like a Juice sketch on Saturday Night Live with Jason in it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's when I met him, and we've been in contact ever since. So I called him up to do the Dr. Skin character. But yeah, I mean, I feel like these things, they're great for promotion awards. I understand why they exist, but other than that, their biggest purpose is to make like 97% of the creative community feel inadequate.
Yeah.
Feel like no matter how you've made Better Call Saul, and now this thing has to exist that makes you feel somehow unappreciated, and like, who cares?
It doesn't
when
matter.
When people think of sitcoms, what do they think of first? Seinfeld or Frasier?
Yeah, Seinfeld.
It's not even close.
Yeah,
it's not even close. And Frasier won like 10 of these things. Seinfeld may have won a couple.
Yeah.
So it's very random and arbitrary and subjective and any negative word that you want to use that will discount their importance. I don't think that they shouldn't exist, because I think it's great to promote great television and movies, but I don't think people should get wrapped up in them. I just you got to have perspective and realize that you've won just by getting to make the project, and then you've really won if people like the project. So I couldn't be more. I've never even had anything like this happen to me, where I've made something for the masses that everybody liked at the same time. Like Hotel Transylvania didn't get great reviews. Zohan didn't get great reviews, even though they were popular movies. And then I've had so many TV projects that, Dana Carvey's show, there are all these projects that look well, where it's like everybody celebrates it 10 years later.
I just want to ask, what's next? You're riding this high of 2023.
I don't have a definitive plan. I have certain ideas for projects that I'd like to do. I would love to cover the election as Triumph, at least some of it. I don't know if that's going to happen either. All I've ever cared about is power. It sounds ridiculous, but
the power to be able to make the things you want to make.
Yes, because that's where my ego really focuses on, not on myself, but on my work. I love my own ideas.
The tone of this movie is pretty different from the other Happy Madison, Adam Sandler films.
It is. I think it's different than most studio comedies, I would say. Rather than, it's very naturalistic, and, it's shot, there's a lot of handheld, and it feels verite, as it were, to use an NPR word. He had a lot of balls when he was hired as a writer-performer. He used to literally say to people, I'm going to be huge. Smigel, I'm going to be like Eddie Murphy. I'm going to be huge. I don't know. I can feel it. And it was really very refreshing, because a lot of people at that show play the passive-aggressive game. Like, what? My sketch? Come on. No, please. My sketch is the worst. And you kind of get rewarded sometimes for playing that game. And I was always sort of a clumsy version of Adam, where I just had no poker face, and I couldn't help myself when I thought, my sketch deserved to be in. But Adam was just like a friendly, completely what you see is what you get. I've always been interested in doing what hadn't been done. That's been my muse and my problem at the same time. I have so many failures. The Dana Carvey show is like the tip of the iceberg. That's what's so sad and amusing at the same time. I actually heard Josh Greenbaum, the director, say, those guys stuck to their guns, and if they hadn't, there's no way there would have been a documentary about it 20 years later. Nobody would be talking about it that way. And I'm like, yeah, that's the goal of every showrunner, to make a show that pisses the network off so much that there's a documentary on Hulu. That's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
It was 20 years ago, and the internet as we know it basically didn't exist. Pretty close to didn't exist.
If you wanted feedback on your show, you would have to go to these Usenet groups, like Alt Fan. Conan O'Brien was one of the first ones, and that's how we knew that we had fans. But there were these tiny groups of 20 people who would talk about the show.
Oh, I was definitely posting in alt.fan.newsradio at the time.
There you go. Yeah.
And so I think to some extent, you just didn't know either the impact that the show was having positively or negatively in the way that you would now. Like now the feedback would be immediate.
No, it was pretty immediate, I have to tell you, because they had a meter that they had. It was like new technology where they were able to track Nielsen ratings. What they didn't do it for every show, but they would spend the money for pilots or first early episodes of shows, what they called the minute by minutes. And so we knew that we had inherited an enormous audience from Home Improvement, and that within the first 5 minutes, that audience had dropped by like 40%. People were just, diving out of their windows, trying to get away from their television sets.
I want to talk about your time on Saturday Night Live,
Sure.
which was kind of your first big break, was as a writer on Saturday Night Live.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
You had been working doing sketch and improv in Chicago, and you got hired as a writer on SNL. And your first year as a writer on SNL was maybe Saturday Night Live's most ill-fated year, or second after the one when Lorne Michaels left, maybe.
Yes, I would call it a second to the Gene Dumanian year. Yeah.
Is it Triumph's Election Special 2016? Is that the official title?
Close enough. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
All
the
right.
logo has no S, but
All right,
it was all done in a hurry.
No, it's great, and it's on Hulu, and I like Hulu. I recommend Hulu, but I really recommend this show. I thought it was fantastic. I actually thought it was too good. I felt like it was 85 minutes, and I felt like I would have been totally happy with 40. And you gave me so much content and so many laughs, but I have I told
I
you
didn't know what to do with the content. We shot like 18 remotes in 2.5 weeks. There's other stuff that didn't make it. And I just figured people aren't going to watch this thing from start to finish. And so I put a couple of things that I thought were a little extraneous at the end.
Yeah.
Even though, like the Hulu people, it was their favorite sketch was the one where Triumph pretends that he's part of Chris Christie's advance team.
Right.
And just makes 1,000 fat jokes in prepping a diner for a Chris Christie meet and greet. The most famous thing Triumph ever did, probably, besides getting in trouble with Eminem, was he went to the Star Wars opening in 2002,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think it was the Attack of the Clones. And everybody who likes Triumph always quotes this to me and, makes fun of the nerds. So there's one scene in that where Triumph brings out Mr. Spock, and Mr. Spock just silently walks past the line and gives everyone the finger. Just doesn't say a word. I don't even remember what motivated the moment, but it's a really funny moment in the piece toward the end.
Yeah.
And so we taped this a couple of ways. And one version, he's holding up a sign that says fags and still walking silently with the grim face. And it was really making us laugh because it's just Mr. Spock holding up this crude, epithet.
Right.
And that's the one we used when we screened it the night before. And it killed with the audience. And here I go again. The standards people had no notes about that. They couldn't have cared less about the word fags back then. People didn't look at it the same way. People weren't enlightened. They didn't think of it as a, they thought faggot was a bad word, but they didn't think that was a bad word.
Right.
Necessarily. And so then, everybody, we go back up to the writer's room and, everybody's thrilled about the piece. But then somebody comes up to us and says, some of the interns were kind of bummed just about the sign that said fags. And we were just puzzled. We were like, huh? Fags isn't faggot. It's sort of its own thing now, isn't it? And that's how everybody thought back then. And, but I don't know. This is how they felt. And fortunately, we had this other take with the finger, and we decided, well, let's not, we just decided to listen to them and replaced it with the finger. And, here is 12 years later. Could you imagine if that there's no way anyone would laugh if that sign was held up now? We have no idea right now what might genuinely be offensive to everybody in 15 years. And so I feel obligated to, not to write that shit off and to listen. And, if people are going to complain, oh, fuck, I can't make gay jokes anymore, well, find something else to make fun of. Triumph made a lot believe me, Triumph's made plenty of gay jokes over the years, and I barely do anymore, and that's fine. I remember having a conversation with Scott Thompson about this in the '90s. Like guys like Letterman, who's obviously my hero and would never do a crude joke, but he would do things like, "Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Rather and I want to have an announcement. We're in love. We're getting married."
Yeah.
And it would get a huge ironic applause and laugh. And I remember talking to Scott about it and like, we're kind of having it both ways, aren't we? We're kind of pretending we're tolerant, but at the same time we're laughing because it's, haha, this is deviant behavior,
It seems like the one window for, and Stern, I think, has achieved this. When just everybody's fair game.
I think there are jokes that Stern won't make now that he would have made 20 years ago. And Stern goes out of his way to kind of, make it a point to express his tolerance for all kinds of people. And, his act has definitely changed on some level. And I just feel like, you have to at least listen to what younger people are saying. I mean, the flip side of this is there's a lot of progress. I mean, would you rather these kids were, racist? And I do feel like every generation gets less and less racist. And
where are the lines? How far can I go? How far can I push? But really, the ultimate goal is you don't want to hurt anybody. And
you don't. But there are times when people are too sensitive. I still think.
True.
Look at that. So I left it in on purpose in the Democratic debate. I make a joke about Hillary and her cankles, but then this girl approaches Triumph and says it's sexist, make fun of, and then later in the piece there's a joke about Hillary's hair. It's like, come on, you're just trying to be outraged now. Donald Trump's hair hasn't been made fun of, and there's meanwhile like 1,000 jokes about other people's physical appearance in that special that people who aren't men. This is the first thing I've done, I think, as my own project that's gotten really great reviews. Everything else gets good reviews like 10 years later.
No, this is good right now. Well, here's the other one last thing, and then we'll go.
Sure.
I was amazed that you did all of this in 6 weeks.
Me too.
I
told the guy at Hulu, I told the guy who hired us, this may suck. This is high risk, high reward. It could be a disaster. Because I've always been a control freak who, carefully polishes these Triumph remotes. Basically, each one takes 2 weeks. We write jokes, then we go and we shoot it. And then I'm sitting in the edit room for 4 days or something. And this time we shot literally 15 or 18 within 2.5 weeks. It was just a suicide mission on one hand, I thought. But fortunately, we had a lot of good material. I worked with some incredible writers and who helped a lot. I depended on them more than ever because I'm literally producing the whole thing, and just you shoot something, then you're just trying to prepare for the next one as best you can within I basically would fall asleep to the laptop every night on the road, basically get 3 hours of sleep.
Gilbert's Old Groucho is one of my favorite bits
one of the best things in the world.
Yes.
Tell us about working with Adam. Tell us about, because people want to know about you and Conan writing that wonderful pilot for him.
When the Michael Keaton, Tim Burton Batman came out, Cinema Village downtown, which is the only movie theater still left, it was playing a double feature of Barbarella and Batman 66. And we all went, me and Conan and Greg Daniels all went very excited to watch Batman 66. I hadn't seen it since I was a kid and just could not believe how funny it was and how Adam West's performance in it is one of the greatest comic performances I've ever seen.
Agreed.
He plays so many levels. It's just but it's a level above even Leslie Nielsen in the Naked Gun. Or any of those type of movies where it's a kind of like an idiot who thinks he's smart. But that was it. We just saw it and just reveled in what a genius he was. And then Spike Feresten, who famously wrote for Seinfeld.
Sure, Soup Nazi. Sure.
He was a receptionist at SNL at the time, and he was just starting out, venturing into writing. And he got a gig, he told me, writing for Nickelodeon, and I'm supposed to develop a show for Adam West. And then I just said, why don't you have him play a detective a guy who used to play a detective who thinks he can still solve crimes. Just hit me like immediately, as I don't know why, but that's how quick. Sometimes my favorite ideas are the ones like that, where they just happen by accident. And of course, he didn't have that's not what they were looking for at all. So, but a year later, I told Conan the idea probably a few minutes later, and he loved it. And then Spike's thing came and went, and we decided to write up Look Well. And we really only wrote it because we wanted Adam West. They made us audition in front of like the network, like in front of Warren Littlefield and Tartikoff.
You went so far as to hire E.W. Swackhammer to direct the pilot.
Yes.
Who had done shows like SWAT and Jake and the Fat Man and McCloud.
Yes, we figured let's get a guy who did those 70s shows and just have it look exactly like that.
And I believe he went by the nickname Swack.
Swack. Everyone called him Swack. And then some people
look at you, Dan. I'm impressed.
Some people called him One Take Swack, which was not a good match. Wow. If I had known about that nickname, we might have reconsidered hiring Swack.
Wow.
Because, we were two kids who had no idea how to make a show. And we were like, it was good, but let's try it again. And he didn't quite do it the exact way I heard it in my head.
Oh, geez.
One take versus the Robert Smigel ethos seems like they would be at cross purposes.
When I was at the Conan show, and I had a big, perfectionist vibe going and very complicated bits that
we've heard this about you.
Yeah, so I nicknamed myself Cecil B. DeBears.
But Dana Gould had an interesting question about Look Well that I'll ask you. He said, I loved Look Well. He said, but what's episode 8?
To be honest,
it's a procedural.
Privately to Conan, I expressed the same concern.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I was like, we'll figure it out later. We both figured that. And that's when we did the Superfans. I had done one with Mantegna, and then such a great actor.
Gilbert.
One of the things I feel so lucky about was that I got to see him. Did you see him in Glengarry Glen Ross on Broadway years ago?
Yeah, amazing.
Nobody has ever matched his performance, in my opinion.
Was he Ricky Roma?
Yeah, he was Ricky Roma, and he got it.
I didn't see it, sadly.
I've never seen anyone do it quite. Or maybe he just ruined it for me because he was so perfect. He played the guy just like Joe Montana, like a regular guy. Mm-hmm. So when he's like seducing the foil in the first act, it's hilarious because he's just rattling the shit off like a regular guy, and it's really subversive. And I remember it killing with the audience too because they got it. They knew what he was doing. He's just tricking the guy by making him feel like his friend. And I love Al Pacino. I got to work with him, which was an absolute thrill. He's maybe the most fun actor I've ever gotten to work with.
Interesting.
He's amazing in Jack and Jill.
Yes.
And he actually got great reviews for it. The movie was ripped apart for whatever reason, but
I want to ask you about, because I saw you laughing at this online in an interview with Howard Stern, about the Cluck and Chicken sketch, which is among your favorites.
It is among my favorites.
That you wrote.
And your first piece that you wrote, which utilized animation.
That's correct. And
very good, Daniel.
Jim Signorelli directed all the pieces, except for, oddly enough, Schmidt's Gay, which was the other big commercial that I did in my years at SNL.
Also great.
Yeah, that one, I'm very proud of that one. But Cluck and Chicken was how I met J.J. Settlemeyer, who ended up animating all the TV Funhouse cartoons for the first 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever get any feedback from any of these famous animators or these people that you were sending up? Like we talked about Lou Scheimer and Filmation. You obviously, or even
Sid Croft.
But that's it. Not Jules Bass never got in touch, or
never really got to
Christmas
hear
time
from
for the
any of
Jews.
the people that we've parodied in terms of animation style that I can remember.
Too bad.
Yeah.
They should have reached out.
Yeah.
One of the things that's so great about these is the specificity, and we know the importance of specificity in comedy.
No, the whole point is like you've got to get it as close as possible so that all the jokes play. Like there's no humor in bending it at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's
all
like
the humor is in capturing it and then having them do something.
Part of what
Exactly.
is that JJ in those days?
JJ did the original ones, yes.
Yeah,
Robert
really.
Marionetti and David Wachtenheim did them for like 12 years.
Props to all those guys for executing your vision.
When I met those guys, it was like love at first sight.
The lights
it
went
was
on,
like,
huh?
Yeah, because I'm so nerdy about the details. Like you said, it's so important to nail it.
Or it doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work as it doesn't really work as it might work as satire, but it doesn't really pay off as parody.
No, not with the cartoons, and not with what the hell? Not with Look Well. You know, like Look Well. We didn't want any. Don't bend the joke. Just make it look exactly like, an episode of Mod Squad or whatever the hell.
That's why something like Police Squad is so much fun.
Yeah, totally deadpan.
Make it real.
It's just deadpan. Yeah, because at Saturday Night Live, and there's a million brilliant people at Saturday Night Live, but a lot of times the young writers would get a lot of shit for being sticklers about details, because these guys have been at SNL for like 30 years or whatever. Well, at that point, it was only like 15 or 20 years, but might as well have been 40, and they're like, what? It's not going to make a fucking difference. What are you fucking giving us this? But people in animation, they're all about details.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. People in animation, at least if you find the right people.
But that was the great thing about you doing those cartoons is you kind of went off on your own and just delivered them finished, right?
Yes, it was. I had 8 years of being a staff writer at SNL, and that's a lot for anybody in terms of dealing with the office politics. I mean, it's a great show. It's still a great show, but it's inherently designed for people to be pitted against each other, and it creates a lot of stress. And some of it's rational and some of it's irrational. But when I got to do the cartoons, I wasn't part of that world at all. I would just show up on Saturday dress rehearsal with my cartoon. And Lorne Michaels, by the second year, he didn't even want to know what the cartoon was. I've also written like Hotel Transylvania, which I'm very proud of. I think it's really good, but not my dream in 1999.
What's Opera Doc?
No.
No, wasn't it?
That's very overrated, by the way. What the great one is Long-Haired Hair.
Long-Haired Hair.
Long-Haired Hair.
You're right.
My favorite by far is doing Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Oh, that was fun too.
That was my favorite thing I've ever done practically. I just couldn't believe that I got to be on it and that he let me improvise this whole scene. Every story I hear about people who do Curb, they're just so delighted that they were able to make Larry David laugh.
After, I think, the Seinfeld hosted episode of SNL,
he offered me to work there. Yes.
Did you know that?
No, but that's also a great sketch, by the way.
Stand Up and Win?
Stand Up and Win.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Really great.
I wanted to go to film school, but I had no academic ability. And also I knew that, there's like 20 kids, they all get to make one short film, and there's only one director, and the rest are running sound. We're paying the same tuition and running sound on some kid's fucking movie.
I don't know if this was while you were writing for Conan, but Pootie Tang, which I know in a sense was a very frustrating experience, this film that you did in 2001, was that also, though, the thing that put in your mind the importance, which you've carried to this day, of just retaining creative control of things?
Yeah, that it's not really worth it. If you're just trying to say, I make movies, that's a horrible way to make a living, right, if you're not enjoying it.
Because what happened with that?
Well, I just got pummeled with Pootie Tang. And I started by making a very strange little movie that didn't quite work. So the fault started with me because I didn't really execute the film very well. And then once it was time to try to fix it, they don't leave it in the control of the, at the time, 29-year-old, comedy writer. I remember watching Curb Your Enthusiasm, which was 2001?
Something like that, yeah.
And The Sopranos. I remember those were on the air, and I thought, that there's such great shit on TV right now. I am miles away. I am in another galaxy from that. I'll never have that. I remember thinking that when I watched HBO television. I think in Lucky Louie I had a big learning curve, and I had tried one other. I did a sitcom pilot called St. Louis for CBS, which Bruce Helford and Bruce Rasmussen and I wrote together. That was based on my act, and it was for CBS. It obviously didn't go to air, but it was a great learning experience. That was my first time acting professionally, really at all. I'd never done it. So I learned what my limits are, But then Lucky Louie they let me do that show my own way, and it was closer to the bone. It was closer to what I was.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was able to kind of do what I was doing on stage in the show. And it looked like a guy sort of doing his acts in front of other actors.
What brought about the idea of Louie and also the special deal that everybody else in the world kind of covets, where you really demanded and got your creative control? After
Lucky Louie, I did a little pilot that was like a sketch pilot, and I made these videos. They gave us very little money to work with, but I made some videos, and they passed on the show. But they let me keep the videos, and I put them on YouTube.
I think I've seen
it. Some of those weird little videos. But anyway, I came to L.A. and did the Wiltern Theater, and my manager, Dave Becky, who's a brilliant guy, wanted to bring a bunch of network people to the show. And I said, I don't want to play for network people. And he said, there's going to be 1,500 people there, and 100 of them will be network people. So I'm like, fine, whatever you want.
Right.
So I don't know if Landgraf came to that show, but I got some interest from NBC and some big networks that were ready to throw down some serious money to have me develop a TV show. And I was very ambivalent about it, because there's part of me that thought, maybe we cash in and make something. But I was very jaded as to what that meant. I knew if it was a network, it meant doing a show that wouldn't be me.
Right.
And that it probably wouldn't go on the air. And we would end up getting a big guarantee of money against failure, and then we'd fail. And I thought, I don't know if I want to do that.
Right.
I'd been down that road, and I thought, I'm doing great.
Right.
Why take that on?
Right.
And then part of me was like, I don't know, maybe I could be a grown-up and make a series. Maybe there's a way to do it and have it be something that would be okay. But and also, no one was going to let me do a show in New York City. Nobody. Just absolutely nobody was going to let me launch and create a show in New York City. And there's no way I was going to take a bunch of time away from my kids. That was a non...
And they couldn't move out here.
Because their mom lives there. And, when you're married, you can say we're moving to L.A., but you can't when you're divorced. But I was taking the meetings and getting offers. And then Dave wanted me to meet John Landgraf at FX, and I thought, that's that little channel. They just took Fox and they took the O out. And it's some bullshit little channel, and they make little shows. Nobody cares about that. I mean, I could go make independent films if I want to do something small. Right. If I'm taking these meetings, it's to make money. I'm not interested in some... I don't know. I wasn't into it.
Right.
And so he set the meeting for me, and I canceled the meeting. And then Dave called me and said, you have to meet this guy. This guy is worthwhile. And it's one of those examples of how the essence of a human being can change everything. So it's like, if John was just FX, if it was just FX or whatever, it would have been like, if you don't want to go, you don't want to go. But it's like, this guy, everybody has met this guy. This guy's worth talking to. Dave had a sense of, I'm going to want to meet this guy. So I went and met John, and he was extremely bright and worth talking to. And he said, I'll do whatever you want to make. And I told him, I'll make a sketch show. I think I had set that ahead of time. I told Dave, tell them to go watch the YouTube channels.
Right.
And if they want, I'll make that. Little sketches.
Right.
And John said, I'm not into a sketch show. When I watch your stand-up in the very vital way that you talk about your life, that's what I want to show about that. And I'm like, well, that's being bid on for lots of money by networks.
Right.
And you're never going to be able to pay that.
Right.
And he said, yeah, but you could do it the way you like doing it. And then he said, why don't you do a sketch style show that has that looseness of format, but about one subject, which is your life. And that made me stop and go, I wonder what that would be. So then they made an offer that was like, I don't know, $200,000. And I was like, that's what I get? And they're like, no, that's what you spent on the whole show.
You're saying per episode.
Per episode.
Yeah.
$200,000 per episode, all in. And I thought, no fucking way.
Right, because you're
I
getting this money thrown at you from these other...
Yeah, and also I'm selling out theaters. I don't need this shit.
Right.
And then John called me at home, and he said, because I had said no. And he said, look, I get it. You want to be Charlie Sheen. You want to be a network star. I want you to think about what goes into that. And if that's really what you want, then I can't argue with it. Because that would be, you have that, I think you could get there.
Can you share what does go into that? Some of the things.
Well,
that
being
you
a network. I mean, this was when Charlie was,
Right.
This is before
on top of his game.
Yeah. I don't know, whatever. But it was when he was on 2.5 Men, just to be specific, and everything was all cylinders firing. And so that would have meant living in Los Angeles. It would have meant doing a show that's 10% me, 90% somebody else, being exposed to national television, which takes its own tax on you, and not seeing my kids and,
having to do a lot of media.
A huge amount of media and press and upfronts. And so he pitted that against, he says, this isn't going to be much money, but he said, this is how we make shows. And he told me about the business at FX and how they try to make shows for less money and go into profit quicker, and that he would give me some participation in the profit. And he was just sort of hinting that he would do it the way I wanted to. And I said, well, the one thing he left me with about doing a sketch show about my life, I said, I'd seen Annie Hall recently, and in Annie Hall he has like a cartoon for a minute. He goes back in time all the day. He has people step forward out of character to talk to him and all this loose stuff. And I said, that kind of thing appeals to me. And he goes, listen, if you want to make Annie Hall the TV series starring you, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
And so I said to him, the only way I do this is if you send me $200,000 to make a pilot, and I make it, and I'm not going to give you a script. I'm not going to write a script and have you approve it. I just don't think I care enough to do that. But if you send me the money, wire it to me, me and my producer Blair Briard, who I work with, we'll make something in a few months and we'll send it to you. That's the only. It's a risk on your part. You're not going to know what I'm making. I don't know what the show is yet, but I need the money in my bank account in order to even think about it. He said yes right away to that.
Wow.
And that's how we made the pilot.
Were you surprised that he went for that deal?
No, because it was really simple. It wasn't very much money.
Right.
And I had credibility.
Yeah.
Enough that if he gave me the money, what am I going to go take off with $200,000?
Right.
It's not that much money.
Right.
Or if I made shit, like just took a shit and filmed it, then he could go, all right, well, now everybody knows that about you.
Right.
And all they know about me is that I took a shot that anyone would defend.
Right.
It also put a tremendous amount of pressure on me. And I thought, now I want to make something blisteringly great.
Right.
Now I want this to be so. I just want to knock him on his ass.
And this you're talking about just making the pilot.
Just the pilot.
Yeah.
I wanted the pilot to be so fucking good that
Yeah.
you can't believe I did it for $200,000.
Yeah.
And then it became an obsession.
Yeah.
So that was it. Then I really gave a shit about the show and applied everything I'd learned, everything, to the show. And then we shot the little pieces, the stories, and then I thought, I don't know if I want to be on. I'm playing a comedian, and I had an hour. The thing was, I had an hour ready to go next. I had a good hour that I was looking to shoot, and I thought, I can't touch that material because that's for the hour. And then I realized that's really dumb. This series could be a great thing.
Right.
So if you're signing for the Yankees, you give them your home runs. You don't take them to the next team.
Right.
So I took that hour and performed it at the Comedy Cellar and shot it and peppered it through the show, and realized that was an enormous asset that I had, was that well-honed material.
Yeah.
So once I saw the pilot, I was like, I knew it. I knew we're going to go to series, and I knew the show would be successful.
And what was his response to you about the pilot?
He loved it.
Yeah.
And he had a couple of notes, which were smart, but he saw the whole edited thing. He'd never even read a script, so there wasn't much opportunity to give me much notes besides how to cut it.
Right. Which you're doing yourself in your apartment?
Yeah, I was doing it on my laptop, on my MacBook, using Final Cut Pro, which we later abandoned for Avid.
Okay,
Avid's
right.
better. Sorry. But that's what Apple gets for obsessing with their phones and leaving behind the professional market, which is what we carried them through all those years that Dell and Microsoft was beating them, and they left us behind.
So, obviously, very quickly, certainly with critics and I think with audiences, people really got on board about Louis. They loved Louis. And part of it was just the freeness of it, where you could have a story that is totally unrelated to the next episode's plot, or you could have the sense that you were doing things that really nobody else was doing. And I wonder for you, though, with the acclaim came a lot more, I would imagine, fame and recognition of you, and the evolution of Louis the show. Does it come to you in spurts? Because we've had a few. We're currently in a hiatus. There had been another one for a little while. Is the way that you do it just, and I guess allowed by your arrangement with FX, that you just do it as inspiration strikes, or how does that work?
Yeah, I don't ever want to do the show because I owe another season. I don't ever want to do a show because it's my job, because I don't think that's fair to anybody. There have been times where I've done the show because there's a bunch of people that work for me, and also I'm indebted to FX. So I want to give them as much return on their investing in me as possible, and I want to keep people employed that work for me. But I'm not helping any of them if it isn't coming from a very important place, which is a creative, real inspiration, like I want to tell this story. So every time I've felt that tap out, I've stopped. Yeah, so I make the show when I'm ready to make it. Yeah.
Is there anything left for you, just big picture, that specifically you haven't done yet that you would really like to do before, all is said and done? And also, part B, is it your gut feeling that Louis will be back, the show Louis, on FX?
So, okay, well, as far as other things, like Albert Brooks and I are making an animated show together for FX.
That's awesome.
And I love working with him, and he's super funny and it's me and him talking, and we're the voices, and we're writing it together. So that's a big ambition. And that's animation. I have never done it.
No.
So that's new. I'd like to go back to what I just did with Horace and Pete and try that again. I'd like to write a play sometime and do a play on stage.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to make a movie. But these things, you can't do them unless you have the thing, It's like Steve Martin used to have this bit where he'd say, you can have $1 million and never pay taxes. This was his bit, like a commercial. Right. You can I'm going to teach you how to have $1 million and never pay taxes. First, get $1 million. Now. And then I always think of that bit.
Right.
So I'd love to make a Broadway play. I've had lunch with Broadway play producers who have said, if you write a play, we will put it on.
I mean, Horace and Pete is your reel for that. I mean,
right. Well, Horace and Pete is like a play, and we could adapt it for Broadway.
Yeah.
We could do that. I'd like to do a new piece of material too, maybe both.
Right.
But as far as you can make a Broadway play. I got to write. I have to have something I want to write. It's the same thing as with Louis. I don't want to make something unless it comes from a creative place. I don't start with, I want to make this kind of thing. I start with, I want to tell this story.
Right.
And then I go, okay, how do you want to do it? What kind of show? Where do you want the show to be and live? And that's second.
Right.
But Albert's show, I do love putting things together for FX. I like bringing them talent and protecting those people and giving FX the opportunity to work with them, and then letting that turn into its own thing. Baskets, I got nothing to do with it. And I'm so happy that I helped create it.
Right.
Pamela's show I'm a little more involved with. I wrote a bunch of the episodes with her, but she's taking it on her own. I'm not there.
Right.
And it's going to be tremendous. I think that's going to be a game changer, that show. But as far as Louis goes, I think the guy that I played on the show, the just divorced, kind of underwater dad, struggling New York comic. I don't think that guy. I don't think I have stories for that guy anymore. But the show is autobiographical. So what John Landgraf and I have always thought is that it may come back with a different set of stories from a different angle, a little further down the road. And I don't know where that's from yet. So it just depends on if it writes. I think for me, if I'm on TV again doing a single camera show, it's Louis.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I have no idea if it's. I needed to not know if I'd ever do it again.
Yeah.
I needed to feel that way. So that's the way I feel now.